The painting demo today is going to be on sky, mountain, and rocks. And this is the photograph I'm using as my reference to give me some ideas. But I simplified it down to the three basic elements for the painting. I'm going to go over the sky, how to do the mountains, and how to simplify the rocks. Hi, this is Everett from Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Now, today I'm broadcasting from Chesapeake, Virginia, from my studio. And I'm in my studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and also checking the chat room. I'll log that in now. Okay. If this is the first time you've been on to look at my show, please subscribe. And as soon as I get the chat room going here, I'll log on and you'll be able to give me some comments. Also, give me a like and subscribe to my channel. And let your friends know about my live show every Thursday at 2:00 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. So today I'm going to do a fun painting, and hopefully it'll be a little quicker than normal, or I'm going to try. I've been working on some different techniques and different things to do. So I'm going to show you all about that when I go to my painting table. So let me take over my painting table, and I'll sign into the chat room also.
Everett's typing in for the chat room right now. Pamela just came in, so hello to Pamela.
Hi, Pamela. I'm trying to log in here as quick as I can. Okay. All right, over on the painting table. Okay, the chat room is live. Okay, just for a couple of little administrative things here. I gotta go to my painting table. Sorry, can't go to my painting table. I'll be changing the camera. EverettsWatercolors.com. That's my website. Now on there, you can the items I talk about today are in my art supply page on EverettsWatercolors.com. Also, the classroom videos are on there, and you can watch all the videos I've done this year, 2023. I even have a link in my website where you go back and look at my older ones back in 2022. The Fun with Watercolors page on my website gives you the download for the photograph and for the drawing for today's demonstration and for other demonstrations that I show. And this is a QR code here. You just take your cell phone and point your camera at that, and you can go directly to my website. Also, the fun Facebook page, Everett's Watercolors Art Group. Here's also the QR code for that. Pointing your camera to that will take you to the Everett's Watercolors Art Group. Now there you can download, if you paint along with me and do a painting with my directions and so forth, then I'd like to have you post it on my Watercolors Art Group in Facebook. And let me see what you're doing, and I'll give you some comments, and we can get a discussion. So I have over 300 videos on my website and on YouTube. So you're welcome to look at those and also see some of my other demonstrations that I've done. There's quite a few, lots of information to share.
Pamela just said she's the first timer here, so
Okay,
definitely
well,
welcome. Hope you enjoy the video.
very nice. Thank you, Pamela. Your comments are welcome, and I request you to subscribe so you can be notified of my next video. Here is the HAKE brush. It's a Japanese brush, and it's pronounced HAKE, H-A-K-E. You'll hear a lot of people call it the HAKE or a hockey brush, but the proper pronunciation is HAKE. And it's almost 2,000 years old. It was originated in Japan, and it was used there for many things, and also in art. It's been used in Japan. So this is a large HAKE, and also a small HAKE. Now, what I've been doing is I've been looking at some YouTube videos on YouTube, and I've been looking at the Ron Ranson disciple group on Facebook. But YouTube also has a bunch of videos on the Ron Hansen using the HAKE brush. And one of the gentlemen I've been watching on the YouTube is Joe Manza. And Joe Manza is pretty good at describing and discussing how he uses the brush. And if you go into the group in Facebook, there's a lot of interesting techniques going on and a lot of sharing there. So the idea here that Ron Hansen had was that he wanted to have everyone capable of doing a painting. And so he really focused on giving a simple explanation, follow simple shapes, and really concentrate on values. So really a loose, fast painting is really the fun part of what I want to talk about today, a loose painting. And I think a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of my students in the past, and that's the first comment they always said. They said, I wish I could get looser. Well, today I'm going to show you how to get looser. Okay, so here's a photograph of a reference. And I always start out with a reference photograph. Just to give me some, a reference photograph just gives me something to look at and gives me some inspiration. And I see a mountain out here in the background, and I see a low hill mass here in the middle ground, and there's some rocks here in the foreground. So that is, I named my program today Sky, Mountains, and Rocks. And I think this little diagram here, or this photograph here of the mountains with some sky and the rocks in the foreground gives me some ideas. Okay, so that was a starting point I had. What I did then, incidentally, as I said, this photograph is available on my website on everettswatercolors.com on the Fun with Watercolors page. Okay, so what I did was I took that photograph and I designed my own design plan. So I'm going to have a little bit of sky, and I'm going to put some mountains. I don't follow the photograph exactly point by point. I use my own interpretations. So I'm going to have a mountain range here in the middle ground, and in the foreground I'm going to have some rocks. Now in between, I could have made this a field, could have made it a valley or whatever, but I'm going to make it a body of water, a lake, and I'll have some reflections into it. So I've kind of changed everything around from the photograph that I looked at, but it gave me the ideas of what I wanted. I wanted some sky, I wanted some mountains, and I wanted some rocks. Okay, so this photograph of my drawing is also on my website, everettswatercolors.com, and it's on the Fun with Watercolors page. So you can download those and print them off, and then maybe get started on that. All right, now the first thing I'm going to do is get a pencil. And this is my my painting paper. This is a quarter sheet, which measures 15 inches by 11, 15 inches long and 11 inches high. And it's 140-pound Gemini watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton, archival. A lot of people don't use that, but I've used it for so long that I'm very used to it, so I use that in my art and my painting. And this is also on my website. I have watercolor paper on there, and watercolor pads, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick sketch here. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to just go in and locate my horizon, which is a little bit below midpoint. Horizon will be a line about here. And there'll be a little landmass here, and that first mountain I'm going to put that's about all I'm going to put down. And of course, in the foreground, I'm going to have some rocks. So I don't need to put much. I really don't have to put much on my paper. I really know where I'm going. This is the horizon line, and I'm going to have the mountains up here in the background, or in the behind the middle ground, really the background. And I'm going to have a bunch of sky. And there'll be water down here and some reflections, and I'll have some rocks in the foreground. Okay, so I'm going to have fun and show you how I do that. So let's uncover my palette here. My palette's loaded with colors, but I'm not going to use that many colors today. Another thing that is also learning is to not only minimize the brush strokes, but to minimize the amount of numbers of paint you have to use. So minimizing the colors and minimizing the stroke. Now this HAKE brush is so the first thing I want to do is put the sky in. First thing I'm going to do is add the sky. So I'm going to start with a little bit of now. Let's talk about the HAKE brush a little bit. It holds a lot of water. So initially, when I do the sky, I'm going to do a wet on wet technique. So I put the brush bristles all the way in to my water bucket, and then I wipe it off the edge of the water bucket. So that right now that brush is loaded with water, and that's okay for wet on wet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the larger one. This is my large HAKE. I'm going to put it into the bucket, load it up with water, and then rinse, wipe it off the edge of the water bucket. And then I'm going to wet the sky and wet the paper all the way down. Okay. So it's almost like it's like you're painting a wall in your house or painting an outside wall of the building. So I'm going to make sure that the paper is completely wet. That way the paint will flow and it'll flow evenly. So here I'm wetting the paper. This first phase will be a wet on wet phase, which means the paper is wet. So wet on wet technique. That's probably the number one. That's the hardest one to control in watercolor. But when you want to do a quick painting with loose brush strokes, the wet on wet is the first one to start with. Okay, now I'm going to load my brush up with a little bit of. I'm going to wet the other brush. Now what I do now is when I start out with a color, I have the brush loaded with water, and then I pick up the paint on the brush. So I'm going to start with a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to warm the sky up just a little bit with the yellow ochre. So that'll be my base coat. I'm going to start with yellow ochre. A lot of people use other colors, but I like yellow ochre. Yellow ochre, raw sienna, anything that's light yellow, light brown. Okay, we'll start out with. Now go straight across the top, and I'm painting the sky now, and I'm going to be designing a sky, and I'm going to leave some white paper, and there'll be more or less the areas where the clouds are, and I'm going to have reflections in the water. So I'm going to leave some of that open, and as I'm coming down all the way to the bottom, so that's just to get started. That gets the paper wet, and it gets the first color down. And I don't rinse out the brush at all. I'm going to go right into my sky color now, which is going to be ultramarine blue. So my second color is ultramarine blue. So ultramarine blue is color number 2. My first color was yellow ochre. That was to kind of wet the paper up and get a base coat started. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of Payne's gray, just a little bit. Now what that does, Payne's gray takes a little bit of that, I would say, real rich blue color of ultramarine. I want to get like a medium value. And what I want to do now is I want to get a test sheet. I always test the paper out. I always test the paint out a little bit on the brush. Okay, that's going to be a little bit darker for me. So I'll add a little bit of water to that mix to lighten it up. Okay, now there's water on the paper, but I don't want a real dark sky at this point. So I'll start across here. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in some loose brush strokes here. And I'm just getting into the sky color. And I'm painting around those areas that are going to be clouds. So I'm going to leave some white paper showing. And I'm going to come on down to the bottom here. And I'm going to leave, I know this is going to be water down in the bottom, so I'm going to leave a little bit of areas for reflection. Okay, now I'm going to introduce a little darker mix now. I'll take a little bit of the Payne's gray in with that. I have a question about Frank Whip. Yes, he's a famous artist. I have several of his books. Yes, I am. There's a lot of books out there, and I probably am I'm a great collector of art books. So yes. Okay, now what I'm gonna do now is put a little bit of dark. I'm gonna put a little bit of dark sky, clouds in here, just to darken this up a little. Get a little more action in the sky. The sky is usually a little darker at the top. So this kind of painting like this, you never know how it's going to turn out exactly. But you got to put some color in there. And when it's all wet like this, it looks awful. It looks dark, and that's okay because it's going to darken up as we go along. And I'll bring a little bit of this reflection over here from the side, from the sky. Okay. All right, now I've got to dry that now. So I'm going to use the hair dryer. Normally I would let the hair dry by itself, but for demonstration purposes, I'm using a hair dryer. So the sky and the reflection in the water is all based on the same technique. Wet on wet, starting. And then I wet the background with a little bit of yellow ochre to give it a nice warm sky color. And then I added in the ultramarine blue with a little bit of Payne's gray. And on top of that, I put in some of the dark colors for the shadows. And this will dry up a lot lighter than what it looks like. Right now, it still looks darker, it's still damp. I think that's the first thing that most watercolors have a problem with is how dark do they do, how much paint do they put on their painting. And normally what happens is they put too little paint on the paper. Too much water in the brush and too much paint in the paper. Or too little paint on the paper, excuse me. And you can see now, you can see it lightening up already. It's dry. It's still a bit damp. So you want to take your time with this. You want to make sure that we're completely dry because I'm going to be putting another wash on top of this with the mountain. So this has to be dry. And all I've done with the paper, I didn't tape it down. I just put a couple of clips in the corner. That was just to keep the paper from moving around on me. And the watercolor, as you see here, it dries about 40% lighter than when you put it down. So what's happening here on this particular one, every time you do a sky like this, it's going to be different. Every one will be different. And so this is going to be a dark sky, which is okay. And sometimes you may have more blue showing, but you want something that has a little bit of contrast to it. That's the important thing. The contrast and the values are very important. Let's check the. Now I check the paper with the back of my hand. Up here it feels pretty good, but down here it's still a little damp. But all I need to do is make sure this area in here where I'm going to do the fountains is dry. Okay, so I test it with the back of my hand, which I've talked about, and if it feels damp or cool, then it's still wet. Now this feels warm, so it means it's dry. Okay, so without changing brushes, use the same brush. Now I'm not washing the brush out. I'm gonna just go ahead and mix now. I'm gonna mix for this background mountain. I'm going to use the ultramarine blue. Blue tends to recede. It tends to recede into the background. And I want it to be a medium color. That's good right there. That color. So I test it out on a piece of paper. Okay, remember it's going to dry. It may look a little dark when you put it down, but it's going to lighten up when it dries. And that's usually the biggest mistake that people have is they don't put enough paint on the brush. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this mountain in right there. Now with this big brush, you don't worry about the detail. So I continue on over here, and I'm going to add in another small mountain top peak. So with this big brush, it's really easy to make mountains. In fact, the Joe Menzo, that's one of his favorite subjects. He does a lot of mountains. He's really good at it. So if you get a chance to see one of his videos, I think you'd enjoy that. But this is very, very easy, very simple. All I'm using is the tip of the brush and making a few angles. Okay, now what I'm going to do now, this is a credit card. I'm going to use this small credit card here that I have, and I use the rounded edge, not the pointed edge, the rounded edge, and I'm going to scrape out some highlights. Scrape out some highlights in the mountain. That could be water. That could be a snow up on a mountaintop. Could be another hill mass. Okay. All right, just a few more. And now when I go back now, I can take the brush now and go in. I can fill in, or I can emphasize something. I can erase some of those marks. I can make them a little lighter, a little smaller. I can cover them up a little bit. But I want a little bit of interest back here, and even in the background, just a little bit of interest, little texture. So the credit card technique for scraping is a good way to add texture to a subject, whether it be a mountain or a tree or a building or whatever. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to go ahead and continue on. Now I'm not going to move forward. Now I'm going to take a little bit of My next color I'm going to put in is burnt sienna. So I'm going to put just a little bit of water in my brush, just a little bit, not much. Only when I go in the second time to put water in the brush, I only go in about 1/16 of an inch. Just the tip of the brush is all I need. If I do any more, it's going to overload the brush with water, and that's a no-no, because then you have less control over where the paint's going to go. So I'm going to mix a little bit of that ultramarine blue, mix it in with that burnt sienna, give me a dark brown. Okay, and I'm going to test that color. A little browner. Put some little more burnt sienna in there. A little more brown. I want it to have a warmer color. I want it to be dark, but also want to be have the color I want. So add a little more brown to that. Okay, all right. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put in the forward mountain, or there's another mountain range in front. So I'm going to come in front of this one. And so the color has changed. It went from blue to brown, and now we're adding in some of the shapes. So really, the two main things that I see, and most of the paintings I've seen by Ron Ranson, is the fact that he changes color, and he also uh, modifies the values. Shapes and values are the two most important things in a painting. You can see here the shapes of the hill mass, and now the values, the darks and the lights, the dark against the light sky, and I think you can see the real impact there. We'll bring this on down just a little bit. Now, my original planning, when I did the sketch and so forth, was one thing, but as you go along, you're going to find that the plan changes, and you have to be flexible along those lines. So this one over here, I'm going to have a little bit different shape. It'll be about the same value. It's going to be brown, be a brownish color, warmer than the background hill or mountains. Okay, I'm working on the shape over here, and I'm designing a nice looking hill mass back here, and I'm just finishing off here at the bottom. I'm making sure my my horizon line here is level. I don't want to go uphill at the bottom here. I want it to be flat, and I think I'll bring this one down just a little bit more. Give it a little interest there with the angle. I'll bring this one down just a little bit. Okay, just adjusting the shape a little bit. Making sure that section is wet. Okay, now I'll go back to my my credit card again, and I'm going to start over here on the left. I'm going to go ahead and put in some highlights, and I'll start up here at this top of this one, using the corner. And over here, And what I'm waiting for, the shine, once the paint is wet, but once it starts losing its shine, that's the time you can remove the paint. If you do it too soon, you start to dig into the paint paper, and you leave the darker marks. Here I'm really scratching off the paint layer that's on top. It's still loose enough to move, but it's hasn't dried yet. It's still a little bit wet, and that's a good time to do it when the shine goes away. So this scraping technique is very good to put in texture, and then you can go back in and put a little more brush strokes in there to change it up a little bit, cover up some of the marks, or add some marks here. Again, building texture. Okay, I'll let that dry. Okay, now as I come down, we'll put the credit card aside for a moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to build in the reflection. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of water, just a touch of water on my brush. Just barely touch the water, just have a little water on the brush. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of the ultramarine blue. I'm going to make a gray value, more gray. So I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue in with that brown mix I just had and make it more gray. And I'll make it a little bit lighter value. A little bit lighter value. And let's see. I'll check my value out here by there. So that's a lighter value. This was the brown that I put on. This is a lighter gray, which is lighter value. That's what I wanted. A lighter value. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in the reflections of this hill mass. Okay. And you want to be reflections. It's interesting about reflections. They can either be darker than the object or they can be lighter. I'm making mine lighter. So trying to find, the reflection should follow the shape of the whatever's reflecting into the water with the sky. Okay, I'll let that dry. Okay, now we've got the sky and the mountains. The last thing I'm going to put in is the rocks, and so I'm going to mix up. Now, this is really the fun part. I'm going to use a little bit of brown, burnt sienna, same colors I've been using, a little ultramarine blue, a little bit of Payne's gray, and also I'm going to introduce a little bit of the Alizarin crimson, a little bit of red. It's a nice dark, rich red. So I'm going to put a little red in there, kind of jazz it up a little bit. Okay, so I got quite a mixture there. And down here at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and just put in a shape. Remember I said before, all we're doing is painting shapes and values. Big shapes and whether it's dark or light. The lighter this is going to show up against that light water. And I'm going to pick up some more color. Now it's all really black, so I'm going to pick up some blue. I want some blue to show here. A little more blue in the mix. And go back to I'm going to pick up some burnt sienna. I want some brown. So this is going to be really, it's just dark, really a dark mixture up here of all kinds of colors. Then a little bit of alizarin crimson, that red. Because my rocks can be any kind of color I want them, so I'm making them all kinds of colors. And there's other things. There's some foliage down here too. There's rocks, there's foliage. you know, it's the foreground. It's the foreground here at the bottom of the painting. And now I can go ahead, now I'm working on shapes now. I can get some shapes, interesting shapes now, things I want to have maybe look like a rock at the edge, and then move on to something else. Okay. All right. Now, while it's still wet, this is a good time to work this. I'm over here now. I can start. Let me build some rocks. I'm going to go in here now. This way, I'm just going to just scrape it out. You can see the angles I can make on this thing with this credit card. This is really great. This is more fun than the painting part. Then a little, maybe some little small ones up here. Now on this side over here, I can make them much larger. I can make a nice large rock, nice large shape. Okay, now let's finish with a credit card. Now I can go back in now with that same, with the colors on the palette, and I can fill in some of the, I can kind of go through here, make foliage, or I can make leaves, I mean, twigs and branches and so forth. And I can go in and put in some of the areas here. Now I can do now, take my brush here now, and I can push it in and make a rough edge on the brush. You see how rough that is. And I can use that to put in some bushes. Just create some bushes. Just by pushing the brush in. So this brush is very versatile. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And then you can get in, this is about as much detail as you need to get into at this point. Making, you can make leaves on a tree. You can make bushes. I've seen some real interesting paintings on that group on Facebook that has they've done all kinds of, they've done waterfalls, they've done mountains, waterfalls, lakes, flowers. It does a fantastic job on trees. So landscapes is probably one of the biggest things that's popular. And put another little one over here. Okay, then I can take that credit card now and take the corner, and I can go ahead and put in some grass or tall weeds. Kind of give it some interest. Okay. All right. I told you we're going to have fun today. I'm going to get a little mixture here of the brown. I want to go back and I'm going to put a little bit of edge on that those mountains. So I've got a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue, give me a dark brown. Now, as I drag the brush, you can see I can make a nice sharp edge just by dragging the brush. So this brush is very versatile. I can make it do smooth strokes, or I can make it do a rough stroke like I did with the bushes. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let me move over here to the side over here, and I'm going to put in a little bit of let's say we got some bushes or trees at the bottom of this little landmass here. So I'm going to put a little edge, a little shadow here at the bottom, just to indicate that you know, there's the water is running up and next to the rocks and so forth here on. And I can go ahead and I can take the edge of the brush and indicate maybe some trees, maybe some taller rocks that are next to the water. So I can kind of play around with that idea, and maybe some of the reflections down into the water itself. In other words, I don't want a straight line across there, so I can make it a little bit rough, a little bit uneven, just like it is in nature. Okay, then load the brush a little bit from the palette and go over here and do this side. I want my edge to be smooth, so I move it on the palette, get a nice smooth edge, then go in here and just lay it flat, and then pull it down a little bit so it gives me a reflection in the water. So I'm laying it down on the paper, and then I'm just pulling it very gently downward. Then I go back and I can play a little bit with maybe trees or bushes or whatever along the edge, or rocks along the edge of the landmass here. And I don't want to get too carried away, but just to show you the techniques here that can be done. Okay, now let me dry this just a little bit. Let me just dry it a little bit. So now the paint's all wet. It won't take very long. Just to put the blow dryer on. So we did, we put in some nice rocks down here at the bottom, and I used the credit card corner to lift out some of those or scrape some of those background away. And look at the rock formation. It really turned out nice. And I put a little bit of edging on the bottom of this rock form, or this mountain, little small mountains over here. Okay. All right, now let me show you one thing that's really neat. I mean, something that's kind of interesting. I'm going to use a pen here. I guess that's the right size. I use the right, yeah. Okay. I'm using a Prismacolor marker, which is a permanent ink on here, a permanent ink pen, and I'm going to put some birds in the sky. Now, notice here. I have a few dots up here in the sky. If you notice here in the painting, well, you may not see them, but there's a few dots right there in the painting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn those into birds. Okay, I was going to put birds in my painting anyway, but that's a good place to put them. Is if you have something that's irregular or it's an eyesore, then make something out of it. You know, if it's over here, you can make a tree out of it or make another rock. But up here in the sky, I'm going to make a bird out of it. And I'm going to need one more. Three. Three is a magic number. You know, three of anything makes it more interesting. So there's three birds in the sky. So that's my sky, mountain, and rock painting using the HAKE brush. I only used one brush. I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, really 5 paint. We count the yellow ochre a little bit for the sky, but 4 plus 1 is 5. Used 5 paints, and I didn't even wash the brush out at all. The brush is the same colors I put in it before, and I controlled the water. Okay, and of course the magic little credit card here, which you know, these are ones that you pick up anywhere, and cut up your old credit card and use the smooth corner, and you'd be in business.
We have a comment. Amazing results.
I love that comment. That's wonderful. Okay, let me put a mat board around this. I have a mat board, and I got another surprise for you. Right here. Let me see. I am organized. I just have to remember where I put things. Right? Okay, so let's put a mat board around this so we take a look at the final painting. Things always look better when they got a mat board around them. They look like they're framed. Now that's going to turn out there. There. Okay, there's the final painting. Okay, and you know, a lot of things could have been changed in this. I think the sky turned out very nice. The mountains were pretty easy to put in, and putting in the texture with the rocks, so forth. And just to me, this was a demonstration of simplifying. We're just doing basic shapes, but getting the colors to flow, and then controlling the water in the brush. That's really the only thing you have to master. It takes a little bit of practice, believe me. It takes a little bit of practice. I've been painting over 30 years, and I tried some of these techniques for the first time, and I had to wrestle with it just a little bit. But if you just persevere. Let me show. I'm going to show you another one I did. This one I did earlier, and I'll explain this one a little bit. What I did on this one, I made the sky bluer. I used more blue paint, or more blue pigment in the sky. And what happened was that when I started and you can see the edge of the clouds, I was able to go through with the corner of the brush, and I was able to pick out the rough edges of the cloud, which is what you need to do with a natural hair brush. This is natural hair. This is all goat hair. It's natural hair, so it does separate very nicely. So I painted that in, and I made my mountain almost the same as what I did here today, but the colors are different, and of course the end of the sky is a little bit different. Okay, same techniques, but when I got to a certain point, I changed my plan about what I wanted to do. Okay, so there's another example of the same painting with a different viewpoint. All right, so let's go to the main table. Well, I definitely had fun today, and I told you today's objective was to have a loose painting, loose brush strokes, and to have fun, and then come out with something successful. And the success is always in how you apply the paint and the water and so forth. And it just takes a little bit of practice. The first time you do it, it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but be prepared to change it in the middle. Okay, do something else with it. There's all kinds of ways to change watercolors before and after you do something. Okay, so I recommend you try something like that. I had a lot of fun, and I think you will too. Maybe what I did today will give you some ideas. And I plan on using the HAKE brush a lot because it does a lot of simple strokes and covers the shapes very quickly, for landscapes especially. That sky you can put in a couple of minutes, and then the background is done, and then you just work on the details. And you can put as much detail as you want later on with smaller brushes. There's nothing wrong with that. But the point is, you get the painting set up and you get it ready, finished, almost before you get at the end point where your impact area is. Okay, well, I enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed that, and I appreciate the comments. All I can say is, welcome back next week. I'll be back here on Thursday at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, bye.